Hello and welcome to another episode of FPL Escapades. I'm Kshitij and I'm joined by Anand. After a game week 11, which went really well for some people and not really particularly well for me. Anand, how are you, man? It's been quite some time that we've spoken to each other. How did your game week 11 go?
Yeah, welcome back, Kshitij. Really pathetic. I did not even bother checking once Johnson gave me a grand zero. How much did you score this week?
I scored an underwhelming 55 because
Uh,
I took
it's
out Harry Kane for Jesus and ended up captaining Jesus even though I had Salah and Bruno in my team. So yeah, that happened.
hard luck. I got two less than you. I guess got just 53. Like really shambolic game week. But yeah, let's move, guys. I mean, I hope we get better game weeks and green arrows in the coming game week 12.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that is what FPL is all about: hoping and 50% skill and maybe 50% luck, or however other people like to play this game. But definitely, yeah, for all of our listeners, if you're tuning in and you like the content we present you, definitely subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, go and follow us on Twitter and Instagram. It really helps us to grow as a upcoming channel. And with that, I think we should get to the agenda of Game Week 12, which is a pretty interesting game week. We have the Manchester Derby, return of Danny Ings, and really adventures of Tottenham Hotspurs as well. And with that, we get into our weekly dose of the essentials for the upcoming game week. Anand, coming to the essentials, I mean, I see Kane and Son still in our essentials is something that I did not really, actually think that we'll be talking about given their run of fixtures. But Kane and Son have kept returning. Spurs have somehow kept winning, and they do look like a decent team. And with a really heavy heart, even though I did let go of Kane and Son eventually, I think I might have made a mistake. And given that how Mourinho and his team is performing, these guys, I mean, definitely essentials. And you can actually not say anything about Spurs at the moment. You never know how they're going to play, who's going to score. But if one thing is certain, that is Kane or Son. Either of them have to return points. For me, Kane and Son remain the essentials from forward and midfield, given their statistics speak for themselves. Harry Kane also leads with a goal plus assist per 90 of 1.65. Nobody's as close to him. The only person who's closer to him is 1.29, and that is Son. So even the stats speak for themselves. Their game speaks for itself. And Jose, he's a winner. And my money right now, if you're gonna ask me, would be on Spurs. What are your essentials going into Game Week 12, Anand?
Buna will be really happy to listen to you that your money's on Spurs to win the title. But yeah, I mean, you've been spot on there. They're very clinical. Even if they are not creating a lot of chances, but really whenever they get a chance, they're just so clinical, and that is what's working in their favor. And Kane playing deep has not jeopardized his goal scoring impact, or rather, in fact, he's been in the assist and he's just giving a lot of assists to Son. So that's a really deadly combo, and one might not ignore as such because they've been performing since game week two onwards. A pretty interesting shout there, Kshitij, and especially now it's like a no-brainer. But at the same time, with Trent coming back to the fold, uh, and playing Fulham next, Liverpool players can well be the right picks for game week 12. Salah, Mane, Trent, Robertson, or even for instance Jota. I mean, all five could be like really great picks for the coming game week. And apart from that, I think Vardy is somebody who has again shut all his critics. So when we were talking in game week one, he scored a hat trick, and even then pundits did not give him a lot of favor because at that time his NPXG was zero point 0. So because of that, a lot of people thought that maybe Vardy will not continue his run, but as seen, Vardy just keeps on scoring, and he started even creating goals. Not like Kane, but even he is creating a lot of goals. And as seen in the last to last game week, he gave an assist to. So Vardy is really awesome. And what about DCL? Like you have him in your team, I don't have him. Already owned by 61.8% of the owners. What do you think about him?
I mean, absolutely. Given that DCL, I backed him right from the project restart of last season. He started hitting form, but this season he's at another level. Actually, I've never ever in my FPL playing life seen a player with as high an ownership as 61.8, and with the kinds of Salah, Trent in the mix as well. 61.8, that tells you everything. 11 goals, one assist. So DCL is not your playmaking FPL asset. If you plan to get in DCL, I mean, every week I think that okay, this might be DCL's last week in my team because I need another premium striker and I want to go towards say Kane again, or maybe Aguero when he returns. But every week that I think that will be DCL's last week in my team, he ends up doing something or returning points from an FPL perspective, and I'm back to square one. So personally, definitely looking at Everton as a team, and they might have dropped in form a little bit once since the season has started, but definitely for me, DCL is worth the keep. If you have to have one asset from Everton, I think it is going to be DCL. I do have James as well. I'm planning to ship him out soon because DCL is somebody with that kind of an ownership. If he fires, all you're going to see is red arrows, which I cannot afford personally anymore.
Also, there are a couple of notable mentions. We haven't listed down Bruno or KDB in this particular list. That is probably because they do not have the best fixture as such, because both of them are facing each other in the Manchester Derby. Do you want to talk a little bit about them as well, about KDB and Bruno, how crucial they are for their respective teams?
I mean, absolutely a really good point, and definitely a good shout out. Gameweek in and out. KDB and Bruno both are really good playmakers, and I for one saw what KDB, not bringing KDB into your team, can do to you as an FPL manager. He ended up returning 14 points last game week. I could have easily gotten him over Jesus, but I wanted to go differential. But that is a separate case. But yeah, definitely KDB, Bruno. If you have them in your team, you obviously hold. You can never let them go. Those kind of players are basically like opposition-less players. They're ever golden. Bruno giving the kind of returns since his arrival in the EPL, I don't think it is matched by any other player, barring a couple, maybe Salah or Mane or something like that. But definitely, KDB is the playmaker. Bruno is the playmaker. Both of them will be involved. It is the Manchester Derby, so the adrenaline will be real high. Ole, I think, would want to keep his streak alive on Pep in the Premier League. So that is something that works in United's favor. But taking nothing away from Manchester City, as much as I might hate them as a United fan, but if Manchester City do play or do come to play or bring their A game forward, it has to pivot through KDB, and same is the case with United, I think, as well. Bruno, without Bruno, I think United's game is really lackluster, and I think we saw that in the last game week. What about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely agree. I was just reading a tweet. So under 2% of the FPL managers own KDB, Salah, and Bruno. So that's kind of, I mean, owning all three of them is kind of a differential, although they are listed as essentials. But you've said enough about both players, and even if you wouldn't have, like, stats and their managers have spoken so highly of them, and we all know how good they are. But at the same time, just talking a little bit about keepers. So Mendy, since the time he's come to Chelsea, just completely transformed their defensive line. Also, the credit has to go to the likes of Chilwell, Reece James, and Thiago Silva. Everybody has bonded really well, but Mendy has been that key puzzle in that. Do you think that it's because of Mendy that essentially that they've just stopped conceding goals and started keeping so many clean sheets?
I mean, definitely the defense has stepped up their game, but after a player like Kepa, who's guarding your net, and Mendy, who's as soon as he reached the English Premier League and started playing, he had, I think, 4 clean sheets in 4 games. So that kind of that eventually will give you confidence that it might open up the defenders to play a little more openly and freely, and because they have faith in their keeper. So definitely, I think Mendy has brought in that pillar of stability as the last line of defense. But I think all in all, Chelsea's game has definitely improved. I am definitely going to keep Martinez between the sticks because given how many games Villa have now missed, I think two. So their double game weeks might be coming really soon. In game week 18, 19, we can definitely expect a couple of double game weeks. So that will be pretty
Did you
interesting.
say?
So
Did you just say Mahrez?
Martinez, I said Martinez.
Oh, I'm really sorry. Okay, I was like, what really happened over here? But I think you're right. The double game week, just you just can't ignore Villa assets because of their double game week. Probably triple game week won't happen, but yeah, they're two games behind the other Premier League teams. So absolutely, I think it's safe to triple up or double up on Villa.
Personally, I'm in a dilemma as to which essential players to keep because all of them seem to be firing at the same time right now. But yeah, with that, I think we have had a long enough discussion regarding the essentials for the upcoming game week, and with after that, we move on to the next section to discuss the differentials. So continuing our talk about Chelsea and Mendy and the defense line. Oliver Giroud is somebody I, every year in FPL, from an FPL perspective, his name comes up, pops up all of a sudden for a couple of game weeks. 4 goals in the Champions League, a goal in game week 11 yet again. I think he's hitting form. Tammy is not doing that bad either, but should Oliver Giroud start, I feel that we can expect returns from him. Richarlison and Firmino, I'd like to stay away from them, even though their differentials. Richarlison hasn't been really firing from a goal scoring perspective, even though he's been giving an odd assist here and there. Firmino, again, I mean, whenever he scores, really, it's kind of a miracle for me personally because I hardly see him score ever. But nothing taking away from him as a player, but I just feel from an FPL asset perspective, he at least both Richarlison and Firmino don't fit my criteria of playing. What are your thoughts on the midfielders on Pulisic, Neto, and Barnes, Anand?
Yeah, talking about differentials for midfielder sections, I think Pulisic is somebody who you can keep an eye on because the post lockdown he was amazing, and even in the last match he came back and he came as a substitute and he scored a goal as well. The midfield section is so packed, especially with the essentials, the likes of KDB, Salah, De Bruyne, and perhaps even Grealish for that matter. And there are so many picks right now. Like say Zaha. If you start considering Zaha, Ziyech, even say Mahrez for that matter, the thing is, it will be really, really difficult to bring in these players, especially with there are so many essentials as midfielders. But then again, Pulisic has the potential to become an essential, and that is why I personally believe that he can be somebody that you can watch out for. But what do you think about Neto in particular?
Between Barnes and Neto, I would like to go with Neto. I mean, I never did own him, but somehow he keeps, he is rather playing the role of Raul Jimenez as the ticker for Wolves. Basically, he's been providing assists, he's been scoring goals, and I I did own Podence over Neto, and even when I had him, I had like inclination towards getting Neto instead of him because he just, for me personally, passes the eye test. So yeah, for me, Neto over Barnes, and moreover, like Leicester, they don't seem to be playing that well for me. Thank God for Vardy's last minute winner last game week, else that would have been a draw. So yeah, personally for me, I would rather go for Neto over Barnes.
I think that's a great shout. We've spoken a lot about Thiago Silva's and Chelsea defenders, but turning our eye towards Ruben Diaz of City, what do you have to what do you have to say about him?
I think I spoke already a lot about how Manchester Derby will have all the adrenaline running high. I mean, think I'd still rather, if I'm planning on getting him in, I would not like get him in straight away for this week. Maybe after seeing how City line up in the Champions League and also how the Manchester Derby goes, I think a Manchester City defender can be a real great asset. Arsenal, I already own Hector Bellerin. So if you have anything else to say, Anand, you're most welcome.
I think Tierney is kind of the shining player in that team. Even in the last match against Spurs, Arsenal looked really disappointing, but Tierney was trying, and they play Burnley up next. If Arsenal can't beat Burnley, then it's gonna be a really downhill journey from them. It's already have been one, but if there is a match for a comeback, it has to start somewhere, and it has to start probably from next game week when they face Burnley. And Tierney could be a good shot again at 5.4 price. with just 4.7% ownership. I think he can be a handful. We spoke a little bit about him earlier. Is Darlow? So Darlow is coming back and playing West Brom. Already made 44 saves. So that's like 4.4 saves per match. Darlow seems to be like a really good pick for the next match week or game week. And if you are planning on bringing on a substitute keeper or a proper keeper, then Darlow could be a good player.
Yeah, definitely. Darlow is somebody who's really surprised me by the way he plays and the way he's been keeping. I personally have stuck with Martinez as my long-term keeper along with McCarthy, and I think that plays really well for me personally. But you never know in the second half of the season when we get another wild card. I definitely wouldn't mind having him after the kind of performance that he's had for Newcastle, and specifically for next game week. I think that this is one of comparatively an easier fixture for Newcastle where they play West Brom. So yeah, I mean Darlow definitely a good shout and worth keeping an eye out for. A lot of chit chat about differentials, Anand. I think, like you rightly pointed out, the midfield and the forward defenders are so jam packed by the essentials. It's really hard to move towards a differential for a particular game week or for the long term strategy. But we have the right section for that if you have to fill places in your squad, and that is the cheapies. Talking about cheapies, Lamptey is lauded by a lot of pundits. Nobody really wanted to take him out of their team. His ownership did went down, but again, Lamptey, Brighton, he shows sparks when he goes up front and sometimes is either scoring or assisting. 3 assists, 1 clean sheet. We know Brighton to be leaky. I personally do not have Lamptey, neither do I plan on getting him, but definitely good shout if you are considering Brighton's assets. Talking about filling in the midfield player, I would like to talk about Ward-Prowse and Armstrong, basically the Southampton midfield. I was personally really confused as to who to get. But I think that Ward-Prowse being on spot kicks and the kind of free kicks that he takes the cake out of these three. But looking at Aston Villa and the number of fixtures they've already missed, I think they've missed two. Like we were talking, Anand, I think Muggin is a great shout. Do you fancy Muggin in your triple up whenever or if you ever go triple up on Aston Villa?
We spoke a little bit about the midfield, forwards versus defense. Everything is so jam packed, and I will probably consider McGinn if Barkley doesn't come back. Because if Barkley doesn't come back in time, then McGinn may end up playing a little bit forward, and Burian or Douglas Lewis may just sit back and protect the Villa defensive line. But again, let's see how it goes. McGinn has been a really good player, actually recording 1.3 key passes per match, which is not bad for a 5.5 player, and his ownership is really low. But again, Hendrick is somebody who we are trying to fix a little bit of players from Newcastle, but Hendrick scored in the first game week, and this might be his game week once again as he's facing West Brom. And West Brom, they are coming with flashes of performance. Sometimes they are defensively pretty oiled. Sometimes they are leaky, as seen in the last match against Crystal Palace. So Hendrick could be like a good shout, and especially because your midfield is so jam packed. You on for that fifth midfielder, if you're planning to just play four midfielders, you really want to go as minimum as possible. And in that bracket, I think Hendrick or Soucek probably are the best picks. And McGinn is a decent shout, but then you have the likes of, Villa defenders, say Target or Mings. You have Martinez, you have Watkins, you have Grealish. There are plenty of picks over there, and pretty much similar price bracket as well, apart from Grealish, of course. I think that it will be wiser enough to, if you really want to go for a fifth midfielder, it will be wiser to go as cheap as possible. And I think a great point regarding Lamptey as well. He looks like a right winger sometimes. You're always up top bombing forward. But then talking about bombing forward, there are more defenders. Sofal and Kyle Walker Peters again. Both of them have been decent enough for their respective teams. Although returns have dried a little bit for so far, but Walker Peters again gave an assist, although it was a jammy assist for the penalty that King scored in the last match. There was a foul on him just outside the D box, but VAR came into picture, and somehow VAR drew those lines and awarded Southampton a penalty. So again, but these defenders, even if you want to mention Justin. These are like really great GPs, because this is the department where I feel that GP defenders have really performed well this season. They've got like really good points, like either it is 30s or in 40s. So they're really matching the top guns. For example, either Robertson or say Chilwell. But I mean, Robertson and Chilwell have taken it to another level. Like for example, they've scored like say, at least 10, 15 points more than them. But again, just 10, 15 points lesser than say Robbo or Chilwell is not a bad thing at all.
Really good point about defenders when you spoke about Robertson and Chilwell being premium essential defenders, and compared to other defenders are only like 10 or 8 points ahead of them. Given how the likes of Reece James and Lamptey and Kufal all are performing, I think that is a great thing. Robertson 7.2, Trent 7.2, these guys are 4.6. So definitely you save up
Yeah.
money to, I think, invest in your mid or forwards. And talking about forwards, I think Che Adams is somebody I who either has a beef with me, and if he does not, I'm gonna have a beef with him very soon. I kept him in my team for so long; he did not end up doing anything. And when Ings got injured, I thought that Southampton might, go off the rails and their season might be done. But Shea Adams and the entire Southampton team did step up, and 3 goals and 4 assists started giving returns the day I took him out of my team. So, but yeah, nothing taking away from a player like Shea Adams who put Southampton on his back and actually performed really great as a striker. But that being said, I think Danny Ings, I don't know, he played, he came, he scored as well, might get 90 minutes or at least 60, 70 minutes. Shea Adams' position might not be under threat directly, but it might just be uh, given that Danny Ings might require some space or some freedom. But yeah, I'd rather wait for the press conference before taking in Adams or Danny Ings if anybody fancies him, because apparently he does not seem to be running out of form. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I see Rodrigo and Leeds here, Anand. Rodrigo's numbers for the amount of minutes that he's played do look good from a GP perspective, don't they?
I think Rodrigo is, even if after he's come back from COVID, he has not got back into the team. Could be because Bielsa has deployed a new tactic altogether. He's playing Alioski, Dallas, and Ailing all three together. So because of that, because Dallas is playing in the midfield, so that one spot is now is now missing, because it was earlier Rodrigo who would fit in there, not at Dallas's position, but they're slightly ahead of him. But in the last match, Alioski was subbed out and did not look that great. So maybe Bielsa would just go back with Dallas at left back, Ayling at right, and probably will put Rodrigo up top with Bamford in the next match. Because this being said, because last match they lost to Chelsea, and Leeds have been the giant killers this year. Even if not giant killers, they were competing with the best team so far. But against Chelsea, they just look a little lackluster, and they need more ideas up top. And I think Rodrigo could be, like you mentioned, really good stats for the number of minutes he's played. And I'm really surprised that he came on against Arsenal, just changed the match completely, and he's not being played. But against Bielsa, and he knows much better about his team than we do. So, but I do feel that Rodrigo may just come back, provided if Alioski is benched again. Overall, good picks. Danny Welbeck is another guy, who was always a very underrated player, but he does give a lot of heart, does cover a lot of the ground, and you wouldn't believe it. Southampton actually were the second best team yesterday, and Brighton was all over, and it was Danny Welbeck who gave this Xavi assist, because it was his shot that struck Ward-Prowse's hand, and then they got a penalty. Brighton got a penalty which Pascal Gross converted. So again, Danny Welbeck has been in the points in the last 3-4 game weeks, and could be like a really great CP option. But again, see, we've already discussed, these are the players that you should go only if you want to have someone as a filler and you have a lot of amount in your bank. So probably, yeah, these guys could be good. And like you said, Leicester has been defensively, they've looked a little fragile, and we do expect the likes of Vardy and all to have a party. But then, because they've looked a little fragile at the back, probably the likes of even Welbeck can have a good time against them in the next match.
Absolutely. And talking about matches coming up in the next game week, a pretty great ones. Leeds face against West Ham, the Manchester Derby. We have Leicester versus Brighton, as you pointed out, Everton and Chelsea. So pretty great game week going forward, and hopefully a better one for us, Anand, considering the FPL points that we've been accumulating over the past couple of weeks. Red arrows all the way, but yeah, definitely it's been great talking to you. It feels great to be back after a couple of missing out on a couple of episodes. Nothing like talking to another brother from the Escapades family. It's been a pleasure, and to all of our listeners, thank you so much for supporting us. The links to our social media are down in the description. If you like the video, do give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, it helps us a lot. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you and have a good one. And as always, may the arrows be green.